If you listen to this podcast, you will make your first $1 million within 3 years. I'm going to repeat that. You will make $1 million within 3 years of the first episode you listen to. We don't want pikers. We're not here to save the manatees. We're here to make podcasts. You really want this. You listen and review.
Put that coffee down.
All right, guys. So Matt here from Coffees for Closers, and we're here with Jeff. So Jeff is one of my one-on-one sales coaching clients, and a little bit of a different episode today. What we're going to do is actually, this is going to be his coaching session. I'll get Jeff to do just a quick intro, and this is pretty early days. This is like our second session, third session, something like that.
Second, yeah.
Yeah, man. So tell us just a little bit about yourself and why you sort of came to get coaching, and then from there we'll get stuck into it.
Sure. So my background is sales, sort of for the last 12 or 15 years anyway. And that was mostly corporate stuff and high ticket financial packages and different bits and pieces like that. Got real close to burnout a couple of times doing that, and had a conversation with my wife and said, I'm done. I'm kind of through with this whole, someone else's foot on the back of my neck and nothing but a cash cow and all that kind of shit that everybody puts up with in the corporate world. And bizarrely saw a Dan Locke
Sifu.
The Sifu himself in the crimpling suit. Yeah. And I saw one of his ads on YouTube, and which was enough for me to sort of get the spark. I didn't do his HTC program, but it was enough for me to go, oh shit, so people do this like from home. Okay. And that was it. I took a deep dive into the world of online. I've done some stuff online previously. I've done some sort of SEO stuff, and I've all that kind of bits and pieces. So I've been around the internet marketing industry for a little while, and so I already had some connections there, and reached out to a couple of people and made some suggestions, and they said, if you want to do it, you commission only, then I'm prepared to send you some leads based on your background, and here we are.
Awesome, man. And you're currently selling a really cool offer. We won't say who it is, but it's like a YouTube coaching offer.
Coaching offer, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, awesome, man. And what made you want to get coaching?
I'm always looking to level up. I'm always looking to sharpen the axe. I've in anything I've ever done, I've never been okay with just being okay. Mm-hmm. It's not enough for me. And I had a conversation with my son based on the same thing, and he said, he was talking to me about earning potential and all of this kind of stuff, and I said that's great, but that comes as a byproduct of just focusing on being the absolute best you can possibly be. And for me, as kind of woo woo as that sounds, that is genuinely where it's at. So I will always try to improve. There's always going to be a tweak. There's always going to be a refinement somewhere that I can use. So yeah, that's the reason for getting coaching.
Okay, awesome. And how's it been over the last sort of 10 days since we put in the new structure?
Massive change, massive difference. I really, really feel like I've got some of the tools that I felt I needed. I had some of the words, and I'm sure people will be able to relate. Sometimes when you're trying to say those words, when you're working off a script, because you have to work off a script, not verbatim, but just to give you some structure, sometimes you're saying things and it feels like you've got a mouthful of marbles, right? You're just like, oh God, that just doesn't sound right. And I knew there was more finesse and nuance that could come as a result of tapping into different people's structures. So for me, that would be the biggest change, is actually finding a way to deliver those questions that doesn't sound like I've got a gob full of marbles. It's more me. It fits with my personality, and it just sounds more natural. And I'm the results I'm getting from those questions are off the chain. Like I could struggle previously sometimes to be able to really get somebody's pain. I don't struggle to get anybody's pain now. Everybody's giving me their pain, and they're like spewing pain at me. They can't wait to tell
just
me.
Just word vomiting.
Just absolutely puking pain from every orifice. It's great.
Nice one. All right, cool. Yeah, because you got a bunch of paid in fulls, so that's good.
Yeah, and a bunch of loaded deposits. People, went through the objection handling matrix, and and handled the logistical first. And for a few of them, it just was logistical. So managed to get, non-refundable deposits in place. And, so yeah. And I know 100% some of those closes and some of those deposits wouldn't have happened without some of this structure and some of this framework. Dude.
Well, as long as the account holder's happy and you're making more money, that's all I want about. But let's just get into the coaching side of things, because that's what you're here for. I'm selfishly turning this into a podcast.
That's good.
But what I want today, guys, we're going to just go through an actual coaching session. So this is just going to be an audio. There'll be no video component to this. So just me and Jeff are on video. So I've got Jeff's script up. So what we'll kind of go through is I just kind of want to find out, man, what are you struggling with at the moment? And what do we need to work on today to get the most amount of value? Because I spoke to Jimmy. I know you've been doing some stuff with him, and he was like, man, the structure you got is fucking spot on. So it looks like you got everything. We haven't really got to the pitch yet. So where do you think you need to kind of work on, and what can we build out?
The pitch is probably one of the areas I'm most comfortable with. I mean, I feel like I've got that fairly dialed in. I tell you where I think I need a bit of help still is being able to separate avatars. Because like I said, we've got three main avatars. And one of the main avatars that we have is somebody that's never done anything before. So it's almost like they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
With somebody that's already got a business running, you can say, well, how long have you been doing it like that? And why did you take that approach? And how many leads are you getting? And you can chunk it down and sort of blow it up for them. But for somebody that's new, you don't have any of that. So I would love a structure and a framework to be able to approach those people that have never done anything.
Yeah, for sure. So we revert back to the macro. Okay. So whenever you're in that situation, you just go back to the top. Right. And what I mean by that is you go out to the broadest possible category you could do, which is, what do you do right now for revenue? What do you do for income?
Right.
Okay. I'm a police officer. Okay. That makes sense. And how long have you been doing that? Okay, perfect. And do you like the job you have now? Well, yeah, I do. Well, what do you like about it? Well, I like this and this and this. Okay. Well, it sounds like it's going fairly well for you, I suppose. Is there anything you would change about your job if you could? Well, yeah, I just hate the fact that I have a boss and that I have to work for this and I have to work these hours and I have someone's foot on the back of my throat. Okay, what do you mean by that? You know what I mean? And then we just change it to almost like a biz op sale.
Yeah.
Right. So we're trying to establish that they're not happy with their current way of income. And then what we can do is we can even take them down the garden path to the point where we ask them about what kind of the money that they make. And then you can even start to go back up to the top, you know what I mean? And then sort of go okay, well, do you like the plan you have now to transition out of your current job and into coaching full time? No, I don't, man. Okay. So, you just go back out, zoom out, and then start to zoom back in really slowly. Because essentially those people, it's exactly how you would sell someone into an MLM. Not that I'm advocating selling people into an MLM, but those people have got, it's a biz op, right? Business opportunity, right? Yep. So essentially you're selling people on how to create their own business opportunity.
Right.
Right. Because you're selling coaching on how to do that. So there's very little difference in how you would actually sell that. Mm-hmm. Right. Because it's about understanding what they don't like about what they're currently doing in the situation that they're currently in.
Perfect.
And then from there, it's super easy.
Yeah.
But people get caught in the weeds because they try and find a problem in the specifics, but it doesn't matter. It's just go straight back out, then tunnel back in.
Right.
And that's what you do whenever there's any kind of problem and you're struggling to kind of find the pain or the reason or whatever, you just go straight back out to the macro and then try and focus back in. And that's how today I was on a sales call with a guy and they're doing $2 million a week. Right. And I'm trying to sell sales training to their team. Right. And it's that's not an easy sell because they're closing at 48%.
Wow.
Solar. So it's really good. So I was just digging around. I'll send you the call. I was just digging for different things and I just kept going back out. So I just went, well, what are you doing for lead generation right now? They're oh, we do this and this and this. And I was okay. And so your sales reps are just being fed warm leads? Yeah. I was and you don't do any cold calling or door knocking? They're no. And I was okay. Is there a particular reason why not? Oh, the guys hate it. I go, okay, so they just sit there like little baby birds saying, give me warm leads. And then he's like, well, yeah. And I go, okay, how did you do it when you started the business? I cold called and door knocked. I was like, okay, what happens if the internet shuts down for a week? He's like, fuck, that's a good point, man. I was like,
Yeah.
So I just went all the way back. And then now I found a problem he didn't know he had, which was that he needs to get his guys good at door knocking and cold calling, because right now he just buys leads.
Right.
Right. So he didn't have a problem until I found it.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing then was around building urgency around like, what if this shit goes wrong? And how do we build a team of killers who are out there hunting and gathering? You know, and he was like, fuck, you know what? You're right. These bitches, these little bitches are just sitting here. And he hated his sales team by the end of the call. He fucking hated them.
There's people losing jobs this morning.
Yeah, fuck him. He's like, yeah, and he started writing out like wanted ads and shit. Like he was like looking for Hunter. Yeah. So like I've got another call with him and the rest, because that'll be a big deal. My wife, she's super hot.
My wife.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be a big deal. That'll be like, 50, 60 grand down plus, a few, like $8,000, $9,000 a month retainer. Right. So like I had to make sure that I found a significant problem, Yeah. And sure. So I'll send you that call. So it's just really about like, you just kind of got to have a few different avenues that you can kind of go
They've
down.
been useful as well, dude. Those calls have been really useful. Just seeing how you break it down and how you frame things and everything like that. I must have listened to the calls that you sent me already like 10 times each call, just going through and making notes and going through and making notes and just building up, that kind of.
Are you setting any hooks throughout the situation phase and the problem?
So how do you mean when you say setting hooks?
Are you setting an anchor that you can use for later? Like, because there's different anchors that you can use. Yeah.
Like when you're on the call with a salesperson saying something like, yeah, well, obviously, the purpose of getting coaching is so that you're congruent, so that you don't get that, that you don't get that pushback on your calls. No, I haven't yet, but that is definitely something I want to incorporate for sure.
It's probably something that we want to incorporate just because it's like, it makes your objection handling so much easier. And like, you're going to objection handle. Like it's just, until you've been doing this for 10 years this way and you can figure out how to pre-handle all of them. But I haven't figured it out. So just be a savage at objection handling. So like you've got the 3 different avatars. So what we want to do is distinguish a hook for each one.
Yep.
Right. So avatar 1 is like the guy that's never done anything.
Yep.
Right. So that person is not currently acting. Right. So we need to set like a hesitation frame. Like we need to, because that's their biggest problem, right? Like they're hesitating. They're not starting what they need to start. So like, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One, if they're a parent, that's a really good one because you want to be a good example. You want to show that you set goals and that you get after it. Right. Also, if they want to be a coach, you can just talk about that. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I love working with people who want to be coaches because there's that kind of, there's that need to act within coaches. That's why you want to coach. You want to help people act. Right. Yeah. Sweet. Perfect. Done. Right.
Nice.
So now there's a need to act and they go, yeah, man, like I just love helping people get through their stuff. You're like, yeah, sweet. Okay. You're done. Right. I win. Like right there. Yeah, right.
Just give me a credit card.
Yeah. You might as well just give me the first 15 digits now. We can just do the last one at the end. Right. So, yeah. And then we've got like, so that's the one we can set up, right? It's like people who want to be coaches. So just have to you have to go to write it out, flesh it out, listen to a few of your calls of that particular type of avatar and see where you can work it in. But generally it's like when you talk about the people who they want to sell. So you might have a little blurb in there about like, well, like who do you want to be selling? What's your client niche? Perfect. Yeah. Those people really need help with this. Right.
Nice.
It's like, awesome. Then you got the people who are like a coach, but like not doing great.
Yeah.
So for that, I would set up that congruency framework. Exactly how I do it in those other ones where it's like lay the hook, coaches need to be congruent in speech of action. That's why I love working with coaches. And the third avatar would be guys who are crushing it, right?
Yeah, like people that are doing, 100K a month and want to scale but can't. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when you've got to set. So that's when it's like the comfort is a motherfucker. That's when you've got to use like what's the demon under the stairs type analogy. Right. So you can set the congruency hook, right? Because they still need that. But then you're going to know that if like, it's like something like 100K a month's pretty good, so it's like, it's comfortable. But like, 100K a month can be a lot of different things. That can be 50K a month revenue, like like in your pocket, or it can be $1,000 in your pocket. Right. So as well, you want to get real with the numbers as well.
Get specifics on the numbers. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So I would say like, okay, that makes sense. And then also you want to kind of question it. So like when someone tells me 100K a month, I'll be like, okay, cool. And like, how much is your product? All right, cool. How many leads do you get? Sweet. How many sales do you make? And sometimes those numbers don't make sense.
Yeah. Right.
And then you're like, okay, so do you have like an MRR system? They're like, no, we just sell all up front. We just take the cash. I was like, okay, well, you're only doing 40K in revenue. Where's the 100? Sometimes you get like marketing agencies that include the ad spend of their client. Right. So I had a guy tell me he's doing 100K a month, and I was like, okay. And I was like, this guy's full of shit for sure. So I just started asking some questions because he wanted us to do his sales. And I was like, he's kind of a dick, so I didn't want to do it anyway. And I was just asking him questions. Turns out like that's including the ad spend for his clients. And that's a smart way of doing it. You put it on your Amex, you end up with like 4 million points at the end of the year. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a great way of doing it, but I cut, he's doing 35,000
gross on that.
Well, that's the gross of what he's actually billing. The rest of it's ad spend.
Right. So his net after expenses and insurance and everything like that
it's probably like 12.
3/8 of fuck all. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So like, okay, great, man. You have a job, well done. So like, yeah. So I could just get through the information so you can start to make more sense. Now, if I was trying to sell that guy, I'd just be like, okay, that makes sense. So this, like, okay, so this is what your kind of take home revenue is like, they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So now you can just like that 100K a month is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so then you can just, okay. So, and then you just talk about the 18.
Yeah. Because half the problem is when they're writing 100K a month, like in their head, some of these people, and I've spoken to them, they get to the point where they've told themselves they're making 100K a month. So
they're paying
they
full,
believe,
you little bitch.
Yeah.
I need your payment plan. Thought you were balling. Come on, bro. Right?
Like, 100K a month now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all well and good until you have to pay. I got a check-in and a saving, and I got to move money around, and it's going to take 3 business days, and shut up. Right? So, yeah. So really understanding and like breaking those numbers down, and then you can just put them back into the guys who are doing okay, Mark, right?
Yeah.
And then you got the guys who are really killing it. You know what I mean? That's when you got to like, what's the demon under the stairs? So the analogy that I use for that is like, I think I might have told you, it's like it's the house on fire versus the ice cream truck.
Ice cream truck. Man,
So
I used that the other day. That's killer.
It's such a good analogy. I don't even know where I made it up. I don't know where, maybe I heard it somewhere. But yeah, so if you like, when you're doing your consequence questions, you don't even let them answer it. So I go, dude, like, let me ask you, dude, like, what happens if you don't do this over the next 3, 6, or 12 months? And I was like, because I'll give you an example of what I mean. Because I know
you just riff straight into it. You don't even let them come back.
Yeah, because I know that I know they're not going to play that game because they're comfortable. Anyone who's comfortable, it's hard to get that, right? Yeah. So it's like, because we all have this, and then you can even use an analogy, like Usain Bolt can be running 100 meters as fast as he can with a gold medal in reach. You put a fucking lion behind that kid, you think he's going to run faster? Exactly. And I was like, I've got a fucking fire demon behind me, pushing me every single day to do harder and harder and harder. Now I use a story here that not many people can use, right? I use like a military story. I'm like, I'm acutely aware, but you can say it this way. You can go, cause we only have 4,000 weeks in this world, man. And that's a good fucking run. And for me, like I've seen plenty of 22-year-old dudes who are, a quarter way through that, not see the next day. So I'm acutely aware that I can walk outside tomorrow and be hit by a fucking bus. So like, I need to do everything that I can today to fucking get after it. So like, I've got that lion chasing me every goddamn day, which is why I have a poster in my office with 4,000 weeks, and I fucking tick one off every single week. So what the fuck are you doing to get after it?
Yeah.
And then people are like, man, even role playing it, you start thinking, I need to get after it, man.
It lands heavy. Even really in a role play, it's like, I'm sat here thinking about it now. I'm like, shit.
And people listen to this podcast are going, I need to fucking
do something about my shit.
That's why, like, I've developed these stories, man, and they are so fucking powerful. In these analogies, like, they just hit home so hard.
I tell you what, the big thing for me is because I always used to sell in my other roles, use an analogy, just because it's because your brain thinks in pictures, right? Your brain, you say pink
Exactly.
elephant, you don't think about the word pink elephant, you think about a pink elephant. And there's an amazing book called, I think it's called The Tall Lady and the Iceberg. And I tell you what, man, that book is absolutely killer in terms of how to frame things in analogous ways. Absolutely unreal book, that is. I got it on audio because I don't like to read too much. But
readings for losers and queers.
Might want to edit that.
I say some raucous shit on this podcast, man.
But yeah, I'm sure it's called The Tall Lady in the Iceberg.
Yeah, I can see it.
Unreal.
Here, by Ann Miller.
That's it. And it's there is some killer stuff in there. So when you and I started working with, and you started, giving me some of these analogies that I can use in this environment, dude, that was big for me.
Yeah,
really,
it's just
really helped.
It gives you the ability to like change the way that someone thinks. I was doing a sales coaching session today with one of my clients, James Cant, who's like a big fitness guy, and I've just started coaching him in sales. He's a killer sales guy. Like it's a straight killer, right? But he's super combative. Like he calls people pussies and stuff. It's like, don't you fucking hesitate, you pussy, you fucking, like he's hardcore, man. He's like 4% body fat. He's all jacked up. You know what I mean? Like he's just like fucking go like that. Dude, he's making $100,000 a month when he was like 19 years old, right? He's just a straight killer, right? Killer. And yeah, man. So I was teaching him this stuff because he's a bull in a china shop, but I need to teach him how to be a ninja in a china shop. Because like you can sell with those hardcore ways, but like that Dale Carnegie line, it's like a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, is so true. And if you want to create like transactional clients, you can just beat people up and like mentally and just get them to buy. But if you want to create like lasting change, like those guys that you've been selling now, those guys are in, they'll probably get great results because you
100%. And they email me as well. I get emails. Thank you so much. You helped me see it, and I wouldn't have pulled the trigger if it hadn't been for you. So, on a personal basis, that's amazing because you feel great about what you're doing. You aren't just smashing people over the head into something. But yeah, the other side of that, of course, is that they're more likely to get some great results. So win-win.
I had a guy send me a testimonial with how I sold him. I've never had that before.
Really?
Did a video testimonial. He was like, hey, I just want to say the way that Matt sold me was fucking brilliant. He called me like 2 days later. He's like, I just realized what you did. He's a sales guy. I was like, yeah, I inceptioned the fuck out of you. He's like, you did.
Well, you did me as well. You did, because when we first started speaking, you set that hook for me. You said something about a call that you'd had. You said that the guy was potentially gonna think about it. I mean, I wouldn't anyway, because I'm trigger happy, me, But you said something about the guy was giving you vibes that he might want to think about it. So I was like, the fuck you are. You said that. And then in my head, I'm like, oh shit. Even if I did want to think about it, there's no way I can now. That was cool.
Yeah. Okay. So what we need to do is find, I guess, the most appropriate place to, so I think if you just have a think about it and you have like your 3 introductions, like for your situation, which is just like, can I ask what you do now to get clients? Like, oh, I don't have any clients. I don't get any clients. You'd be like, all right, cool. So like, what do you do for revenue? Right. So you just go straight back out. That's super simple. How long have you been doing that? I'm curious, like what caused you to do it that way? Okay. So do you like the job you have now? And I'll send you a video of Jeremy doing it where he's selling a BizOp, because Jeremy used to be real big into like network marketing.
Oh, okay.
So, and he's selling a cop.
Perfect.
It's live on stage and he's selling the guy and the guy doesn't know. Yeah.
The guy doesn't know he's being broadcast.
Just how much of a savage he is. He's like, he asked permission to do it afterwards. And the guy was like, yeah, fine. But yeah, he's like in front of 100 people. He's like, I'm going to do a live sales call for you guys. They're like, would that be cool? It's so good.
Oh man. Yeah. I'd love to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but that'll give you a good, like, because I haven't sold BizOp network marketing. I've sold the type of people you're talking about, but that'll give you like, that's exactly how you do that, because it's the same framework, it's just the same everything. But it's like, that's the line of questioning. That's kind of like the emotional pulls you want to get when somebody doesn't have a business and they want to start something, right? Because you've got to understand the frustration that they have around the way that they currently make money.
Yeah.
And so that frustration has to be like the house on fire.
Yeah.
So you've got to really be able to pull that out really nice and succinctly. So I think having a story for you Similar, the perfect story is exactly the one that you told at the beginning of this podcast, which was like the reason why you became a closer. You're sick of having the fucking boot on the neck.
Yep.
So for you, like where you put that tactical vulnerability in, right, is like right when you do consequence questions.
Okay.
So if I come down, like what happens if it doesn't happen? And then if you don't like the answer, you do the tactical vulnerability.
Yeah.
So tactical, I'm just putting the script. Have you seen any of you watched that one I sent you with the guy who went to prison, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that tactical vulnerability that I did there was designed because like I knew. So with that one in particular, like if you watched that, if you watched it a few times, but there's like 10 things that I did in that call.
Yeah.
There's heaps of like little things that I had to put in there because like he was like a classic guy that would never buy if he didn't do it perfectly.
Right. Okay.
Right? Because he didn't believe in himself. He felt bad about who he was. He's comfortable, right? And he's a sales guy who like, so like a lot of sales guys, like if you don't handle it perfectly, they'll just, yeah, man, fucking sounds great. Send me an email, fucking 100% in, salesperson to salesperson. You always know they're trying to get out of it. They're like, hey man, sales guy to sales guy, I wouldn't fuck you around. It's like, you're the worst kind of prospect.
Yeah. You lying bastard.
Hey, well, sales guy to sales guy, give me your fucking money. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, like if you watch that and you're like, the anchors that I had to set at the beginning were like very like, I had to do the congruency frame. So I did that. And then there was a part in there, which is the real importance of like the really listening to the language choice that they use. That's why someone like you, who's like, intelligent, a little bit older, like you have a far better vocabulary.
That
right?
was a backhanded compliment. That was.
It was. You're old as fuck and not stupid.
Shit. 50%. I'll take it.
Exactly. Right. But like, so like, for example, right. Like if I say stewardship, what do you automatically know about me?
That you're potentially religious.
Exactly. Right. It's a very important thing to know. Right. So most people don't know that. So if you know someone is religious, or like if they've talked about it or whatever, or if you just know from like a quick Facebook profile stalk, right?
Yeah.
Beforehand, then when you talk about certain aspects of them being a coach, you can talk in terms of stewardship, and they will immediately have a deeper connection with you because they go, oh, fuck, this guy talks the same language as me, right?
Yeah.
Because like stewardship and leadership are technically the same thing, but it's very different applications.
Yeah.
Right. So stewardship is about leading a flock. It's very much like, it's very care based, whereas leadership is just like, do as I say. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you can talk in someone's vernacular. So in that call in particular, I asked him why he wanted to, get better. I was like, just so I can see the rationale behind why you might be looking at this. He said, I just really want to be at peace that I'm doing the best I can for the account holder. And I was like,
which was a weird thing to say.
So fucking weird, right?
At peace. What does that mean? Yeah,
exactly. And you picked up on that, right? Because you're like got experience, you got life experience, right? And I picked up on it too, because I have life experience. And I did the call review, and I like 10 seconds after that, I paused it. When I was like, anyone noticed that? They were like, what? I was like, man, that is a demon in the closet. That guy's got skeletons in his closet for sure.
Yeah.
Right. So just listening and picking up on all the cues they're giving you, I was like, okay. And in the beginning of the call, I hadn't hit record yet by mistake. He said he has trouble with prospects getting deeper. Right. Like he has trouble with that. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I was like, oh, I got you now. Like all I got to do is get you to get deeper. Right. So, and like I'd gone through a couple of sections where I was trying to get the goal, and the goal was like relatively surface. Then when I went for tactical vulnerability, he's like, I'm just really going to smash it. So I went into that whole, like a real tactical vulnerability piece talking about my father, because he was around the age of a guy that I would assume would probably have kids, or he would have recently lost a father.
Right.
Right. I know it sounds kind of gross, but that's kind of where my head was at. I was like, well, he's old enough to where he's, anyway, I thought that would be, there was no downside to saying it, but I thought it was a positive. And the story is kind of true anyway. So like, I was like, oh, I usually don't add the part about the part where I called my dad, but I do if somebody's of like the right ages, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if I know that they have kids, because then they can empathize about being the father, right? And then so I told him, and then kind of went through that tactical vulnerability, showed the vulnerability, and I was like, so like, what's going on, man? Like, why do you need to do this? And he was like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but you know? And I was like, sweet. Yeah. You just fucking word vomited. Right. And that was because like, I knew I had to do that.
Super
and
nice
then,
guy as well, though.
super nice guy. Awesome
super
dude.
lovely guy. I bet that guy closes real well because
yeah,
I'm sure he gets like real good rapport and stuff. But
yeah. And the demon in the closet was the fact that he'd been part of a fucking Forex scam, you know,
right.
scammed like millions of dollars out of people, you know, I don't need, you know, and then he went to jail and he just felt super guilty. Didn't feel worthwhile of himself, you know? And so like, then that was all of that. I'm at peace. I was like, man, when I heard that, I was like, that's super weird.
Yeah.
Right. So picking up on those little things and then having those little, like when you hear shit like that and when you know that people are going to struggle to get certain things, like you need to be able to identify it early and then know exactly when to place the thing to fix it is. And like consequence questions is a place where you can do a lot of fixing.
Yeah.
So you can identify the non-buyer language, you can do some really powerful analogies, and you can get tactical vulnerability all in consequence questions. Yeah. And those are all like, okay, like, you know, it's step one, tick that, step two. Like if you get the answer that you want and you know it's a good answer, you just fucking keep rolling through because the faster you get the call done, the better. But then by having those like, okay, that wasn't good, I'm going to call out non-buyer language. Okay, cool. Step two, I'm going to give them an analogy to try and get what I'm trying to get out. Step three, I'm going to convey vulnerability because they will never tell you about what failure is to them unless they feel comfortable enough to become vulnerable, because like telling you my goal and telling you what happens if I don't is like real vulnerability, which is why people like don't post their goals up on Facebook very often. No one says, hey, I'm trying to lose 12 kilos. You know what I mean? Like that specificity and that calling out, like it's a certain level of vulnerability to be able to tell people what you want.
Yeah.
Like really what you want, you know? So, yeah. And then that whole exploring a failure thing is extremely important. I think that those analogies really work quite well.
But that piece alone, that bit, the tactical vulnerability and the analogies in order to be able to pull out the pain is that. I mean, that's worked for me. Like I can't tell you that alone. It was worth the coaching fee. Just that bit. I swear, it's so good, mate. Really.
Nice one. And then you're comfortable with the pitch. You've locked it up into the pillars.
Yeah. So basically, 3 pillars of everything that we do. Just go through. I was really drawing that out before, and I've really clipped that back since speaking to you.
Yeah.
And just focusing much more on putting it back into their language, focusing on what they need to do. And if there's a piece of that, like if there's one of those pillars where, you know, they've doubled down, no, we've got this in place. What we need is we really need this. Then I'm with these two, I'm like, yeah, so we get that. And then I'm doubling down on that one thing that was important to them. So I'm just being a little bit more cognizant and congruent of the previous conversation and then Perfect. Just really winding it in better at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we want to focus on one major problem, you know, not because if we bring out too many problems in the call, then like we're going to make them like lack clarity, right? Yeah. If they lack clarity, they're not going to trust their own decision-making process.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's like that buying pocket that like Taylor Welch talks about all the time, you know, like they have to be kind of up here to where they're confident in their own decision-making around most things, but then they have to be down here to where they're not so arrogant.
Not too far to the other end because then they think they can do it by themselves. Yeah,
exactly. And if you, a lot of the mistake that a lot of guys make is that they try and pull the pain too early. Right. So
I was 100% doing that as well.
Yeah. So you got to earn that vulnerability, you know, and that whole story around like, if you just walk into an elevator and ask somebody about their relationship with their mother, like you're a fucking weirdo, you know? So a lot of guys go like right at the very beginning of the script. Okay. So what are you doing to lose weight? You know, like, okay, like, what are you here for? Oh, I'm here to learn how to lose weight. And is not losing me and lose weight, is that impacting you? Like, what's that doing with your children? Do you hate yourself? Okay, good. Like, it's like, fuck you, man. Like, fucking use some lube for God's sake.
Yeah.
Fuck everyone.
Don't take me dry, man. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, it's not Wednesday. So, yeah. So, man, that's good. There's like that funnel. It's like that pain funnel, you know? So you kind of have to you have to earn that real pain. And most people just don't get there. They don't get to the real crux of it. And that's why people stay in the status quo. You know?
And I tell you what, man, without that, if you're not going to get, if you don't have a real solid way to be able to get anybody to talk about their pain, that it's game over. Don't, you know, if you close it, it's because it's a fluke.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was a rollover, right?
Well, it's funny. I just took over a sales team and they're closing at like 12%. And I was like, I could just call people up and say, do you want to do it? And I'd probably get 10. They're like, huh? I was like, I get a call center in India to do 12. I was like, you all suck. They were like, one of them quit on the spot. I was like, fucking see ya.
Really?
So they're terrible, bro. And great guys. They're just all, their closers in black. They're HTC, right. Dan Lock, Crushed Velvet. But like in 6 weeks, they'll be crushing it. It's not a big deal. Yeah. Okay, cool. So what we'll do next call is we'll do a call review together.
Awesome.
Right. So like just record one. We'll bring it up and then we'll kind of go through it so we can just make sure that everything's iron tight.
Perfect.
But I think that those little changes, I think will make it good. I think just having that, like people that situation questions when people are outside the box really trips people up, but it's because you're just overthinking it. It's actually just really easy, right? What do you do for revenue? Do you like what you do for revenue? No. Why not? Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
Super simple.
Cool. Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
And then make sure that you turn the stories into numbers. So whatever they're telling you, like analyze it, make sure you get the real answer. Then you can put them into one of those 3 categories. Mm-hmm. Right. And then make sure the guys who are like genuinely doing really well, that that you're going to have to really explore the cost of inaction because they're comfortable.
Yeah.
So using those stories, right now you're on the couch under a blanket, watching fucking Netflix, having a Slurpee. Everything's great. It's comfortable. But there's a guy back here. He's being chased by a goddamn lion. He's just going to fly past you, buddy. So we need to start getting after it.
Yeah.
Comfort is a motherfucker. And I tell people that all the time. Being comfortable is the worst. Because people who have their backs against the wall, they fight and they work hard. And it's like, then people get to a certain point where they forget what it was like to have that fire in them. Which is why Rocky is even a movie. Right?
Great movie.
Great fucking movie, man.
Great movie. I love that film.
Yeah. But he comes back up, he gets that fire back in him when he has to fight even Drago. Rocky 4 is sales.
Right. I'm gonna put that on my calendar for today.
Rocky 4.
Watch Rocky 4.
So funny. All right, cool. Awesome. Questions, queries, data points?
No, nothing. Perfect.
All right, brother. I'll see you next week.
Appreciate it.
See you, bro. Bye.
Cheers, dude.
All right, guys. So that's the end of that podcast. So I hope that was interesting for you guys. It might be super boring. I don't really know, but that was what a one-on-one coaching session looks like when we don't have, obviously it's a little bit different sometimes because we couldn't go into specifics about his offer and his pitch, but that was kind of how we go back and forth about getting someone better at sales and having them understand concepts a bit better. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us out. And as always, have an awesome day.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only.